Welcome to another edition of the GMologist Presents. Today I will be talking about the Savage Weekend that I participated in, playing in Kevin Madison of Dungeon Musings podcast and actual play YouTube channel in his marathon session. I played 3 games of Savage World, Savage Pathfinder, or I played a dwarven magus, so fighter magic user with a fire trapping more or less. And then I actually added to the Savage Weekend by running an in-person game of Deadlands with our Sunday dinner group of friends that I have. So I will talk about that here. First, we'll have some call-ins and my responses to them. And then, even before the Savage Worlds talk, I promised something that I forgot to add to the previous Geomologist Presents, and that is a summary of our Warhammer Fantasy RP4 character creation, since we're going to play that live this week.
What's up, Carl? It's Arlen calling in. Glad you enjoyed Savage Sewer Creatures. I've been having a lot of fun with that. I feel like it's made a really good kind of like, mess around and relax on Friday afternoon kind of game. But yeah, it was fun to have you guys beat up some of those ninja bots and do all that sort of stuff. Your Band of Brothers yearly rewatch thing. That's pretty cool. I have seen some of Band of Brothers. When I was a kid, one of my best friend's dad was he was really into Band of Brothers, really liked the show. So I saw bits and pieces of it when I was like in elementary or middle school, which I did not understand what it really was at the time, of course. And we didn't ever watch like a whole episode, except maybe the first one where they're just in training to be paratroopers and all that sort of stuff. I think we watched the whole episode of that one, but the other stuff we only watched like small sections of it. Anyway, but pretty cool. That's a neat tradition, a good way to kind of have a lasting relationship, not just with that show, but with that kind of concept and that sort of greatest generation idea in a lot of ways. So anyway, really enjoying the Geomologist Presents. I'm glad you have started a podcast. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the gaming marathon. And I guess I will see you on Tuesday at the very least for our Tuesday night game. So take care, and I will see you soon.
Hey, Arlen, thank you for the call-ins. Actually, I'm glad my non-RPG content was received so well. Yeah, just part of these podcasts is to share a little bit about ourselves. You and Jason Hobbs from Random Scree do that really well. And hey, we're a community and a family somewhat of nerds and people who love games and love pop culture. And it's good to always know what each other are doing and thinking, really. So thank you for those call-ins. I'm really enjoying all the Savage games that I'm playing. I've mentioned that I got to use Brody as a bad guy in one of my games because he looks like he'd be hard to kill and hard to take out. Might be memorable, might TPK a whole party. So thank you again for running that. I can't wait to see what happens in the next one.
Hey Carl, Jason here. Enjoyed your last episode. I was sad that you didn't sing, but I'll give you a pass this time, since I'm the only one participating in your contest anyway. As far as your ending comments, I don't think they were controversial at all. I don't know why that would be controversial unless somebody out there's a Tulsa Massacre denier or some craziness like that. But I mean, we know it happened. We know it was horrible. And, well, I take it back. It definitely happened. It was definitely horrible. But like you say, a lot of people still don't know about it. And I wonder how many people that saw those things in TV on Watchmen and Lovecraft Country thought they were TV programs, until President Biden actually went there for the 100th anniversary, to shed some light on this. But yeah, it's a sad part of American history that has been kind of swept under that needs to be brought to light. So thank you for talking about it.
Hey, Jason, thank you for the positive comments. I'm going to continue to share stuff that crosses my mind, and we need to really talk about this kind of stuff, I believe. And yeah, let's talk about RPGs and gaming, but sometimes those, honestly, like the RPG and gaming stuff that we do, sometimes will inspire a comment about a social issue. And I think that's okay. I really think that we need to talk about these things and shed light on history that has been swept under the rug. It's important.
Hey, Carl, Jason here. I know I'm sending this before you release another podcast, but just to answer your musical cues in your upcoming podcast, Death Clock, Death Clock, Death Clock. I heard you call into Arlen's program live from Pellam's Wasteland and talk about the desire to do big space battles, not just a few fighters, but actually, squadrons of ships. And as far as RPG goes, I don't know. I think, and I'm pretty small-minded, so I'm sure other people have different ideas on this and better ideas on this, but I kind of see two main ways to do this. Number one is the Return of the Jedi model. And by that, I mean you had the big battle going on, but your PCs are on the moon trying to shut off the shield generator, not up in space fighting, right? And so how do we do that? Well, the PC shutting down the shield generator is pretty easy to do. But how do we do the space battle? Well, I would say when it makes sense. I wouldn't do it every round, but maybe every third round or every logical pause, or when a big roll is about to come up, you as the GM have to decide how to do this dramatically. But every now and then you're going to cut to the space battle from the PCs. And when you cut to that space battle, you let the PCs roll, but you find some really generic rules, and basically you're doing a dramatic task out of Savage Worlds, and then you're just narrating the space battle. If the PCs roll good, then their fleet's doing better, and if they roll bad, then the bad guy's fleet's rolling better, or doing better, and you just narrate that. So that's one way you can do it. I think the other way to do it is to actually play a war game.
Here's a new one for you, Jason. Let's see if I can do it. And the men who hold high places must be the ones who start to mold a new reality. I'm going to stop there because I would give it away.
Way back in the first decade of the 21st century, I used to go to war game conventions and go to buddies' houses and play war games a fair bit, miniature war games. And we used to do Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica and stuff like that for the big fleet battles. And that was a lot of fun. And there's a ton of miniature war game rules that let you do this. I can give you recommendations if you need them. But and those aren't too hard to adapt. There are already, things like Tabletop Simulator. You could adapt it to Roll20 easy enough. There are ways you can do this online. In person, of course, you'd set up all your miniatures, and now that you're getting to the point you can do that again. I mean, or like, well, you're a Games Workshop fan. You use like Battlefleet Gothic, right? I think that's what it's called, Battlefleet Gothic. Pretty sure that's what it's called. Anyhow, so when you do that battle, it's not that the PCs are. You just switch to full battle mode, and you just go and do a straight war game. Having PCs affect the battle, you can do it the way we did it with, Cthulhu Invictus, but I don't know how satisfying that would be with a big space battle. I think it'd be pretty unsatisfying, because Cthulhu Invictus was pretty unsatisfying when you stole our victory out of our hands. So I think it would be the same thing with a space battle. But we'll talk more about GMs taking away player agency over my podcast. But I do think you could do it. And I'm sure there are a bunch of ways to do this that I'm not thinking of right now that other smarter people can think, including yourself, could think of. So I look forward maybe if you expand your thoughts, and then maybe other callers talk about it as well.
Haha, you mentioned Savage Worlds. I think Savage Worlds would be a good way to do it. And you could either do it if there are some people up in space and some people on the ground as a parallel dramatic task where there's a timer and a time limit and you have to do X before something bad happens. Kevin, I think maybe inspired by something like that, did that in our Savage Worlds battle, and I'll talk about that more in detail below, but he did run like 2 groups doing parallel dramatic tasks, and there are goals for each of the tasks. So you could have, in your example, a group up in space, maybe like as Admiral Akbar or Admiral Akbar's advisors, or even pilots leading squadrons, and another group on the ground with, playing the role of Han Solo and Princess Leia, and Luke. And Luke would be even a separate thing, right? That could be very interesting. I could see how you could model that with Savage Worlds, doing parallel dramatic tasks where the players really, what happens is effectively there's a battle roll at the very end of the quote unquote round, and everyone contributes to that success or takes away from that success, and there are consequences if you fail your particular role and trying to accomplish what you're doing. And that could be anything on a roll, from fighting to sneaking to whatever skill you can think of or contribution that your character could do in this sort of quote unquote battle round or on this round of the dramatic task. It works really well, and I will talk about that, I said, again in detail down later on, at least in the particulars as much as I can remember for the Savage weekend, Savage Pathfinder games. So thanks you for the call in, except for the part where you say that I steal player agency because you guys could have ran. Just reminding you. But I do take your point and concede your point that, it is a predetermined outcome if you're playing a historical game, right? I mean, I know what's going to happen. You guys did the best you could, and you did, I would say, change the outcome somewhat. I thought you had fun. I didn't think that you were dissatisfied with the outcome. All right, I noticed in my last podcast that I had in the intro that I was going to go over Warhammer Fantasy role-playing 4th edition character generation, since it's pretty fun, and there are it's not quite the game within a game that Traveler or some of the Modifius 2D20 systems are, but it is pretty fun, and we did devote a whole gaming session to it, still online in preparation for our actual live play in person, finally after over a year, back at Dragon's Lair in San Antonio. So here goes. So basically the character creation summary is a 6 to 9 step process, depending on how far you get. We actually most of the players went through steps 1 through 6, and you can do it totally randomly. I think this is the fun part. You have choices to do species, class and career, attributes especially, and those you can roll totally randomly, and if you do, you get a bonus of 120 XP to then spend on your character before play. So some of the players did do that. My friend Ben rolled up a human lawyer, my friend Vince rolled up a human villager, and my friend James rolled up a human advisor, and they did it all randomly. Basically, they rolled first on the species table, which is a 90% chance that you're going to be a human, but if you just roll randomly, you get 20 XP. Then they rolled on the class and career, and if you take the first roll on a D100, which they did, you get 50 XP. The other choices you can do is you can roll 3 times and take the one that you like, and you are bumped down to 25 XP. And then finally, when you roll your attributes, if you roll in order, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 attributes. If you roll down the line and put them in order, you get 50 XP. If you mix them around but take those rolls, then you're bumped down to 25 XP. So these 3 players, they did it all random, and that's what they ended up with. Our friend Chase then went down, I guess, a level in randomness, but he did really well on the random table. His first roll was a 100 for species, and he ended up being a wood elf. And then his first time roll for career, ended up being a knight. So he is a wood elf knight, and he gets to start off with 70 more XP because he rolled randomly. And finally, when he rolled his attributes, he did mix them around because he didn't like how things shook up based on what he wanted to do. Although as an elf, you get quite a bit of bumps in your bonus. Most other species get 2d10 plus 20, but elves have a lot of 2d10 plus 30 and even a 2d10 plus 40 for their starting attribute. Finally, my friend Jeff, who's played this game before, wanted to customize his character. So he was initially going to, min-max as best as possible and do everything non-random. So he chose his species, which was a high elf, and he chose his career, which was to be a wizard. And eventually he's decided to become a blue wizard who focuses on magic from the heavens, in the wheel and colors of magic in the Warhammer verse. But when he rolled his attributes, they were actually pretty good. So he stuck within a row. So at least he did end up with 50 XP. So after that, the rest of the character generation is finding your skills and talents based on your species and career. And then you choose your trappings. So you really don't buy equipment. You have a set of trappings that you get, and then you have a set of income that you have. And there's a mechanic in Warhammer where in between adventures you can do that shopping and marketing and spend your hard-earned money or gain more wealth, right? So and then everyone went through step 6, which is adding detail. So they chose their name, age, hair, eye color, height, psychology, and ambitions. Everyone is going to have a short-term and long-term ambition. And when we get together, we'll look at the party ambitions. And I think it's going to be really pretty fun. We're going to do, like I've mentioned, the enemy within campaign and enemy in the shadows. Shadows over Boghofen are the first 2 adventures. And they do recommend, like the conceit in the first adventure is that they're looking to get the next coach out to the big city of Altor from their coaching inn that they all meet at. But one of the characters, the knight, technically would have a horse, so they wouldn't need to do that necessarily. However, I've already talked to the player, and that is one of the things that is bringing the players together, is to track down the Wood Elf Knight's horse, because undoubtedly it was either stolen or even maybe he was swindled out of it. Swindled probably seems to be the way it would go. The people in the Reichsland took advantage of this country bumpkin knight who's a wood elf, not knowing how things work in society, in the human society, and stole his horse somehow, or he lost it somehow. So that's how we're going to start. I think it'll be really fun. So that's Warhammer Fantasy character generation in a nutshell. You can do random or pick and choose, and it's pretty fun. Doesn't take too long. Maybe for all 5 players, we were done within our normal time frame of playing, which was about 2 to 3 hours. But there's a lot of discussion and people trying to decide, how things fit together. And really, like, the big decision would be, what skills and talents you pick if you're given a choice, and what career skills and talents you put points in. So that was the main. The initial stuff is pretty fast, right? So there you go. Warhammer Fantasy character creation in a nutshell. So Kevin Madison, aka the Dungeon Muser, ran a 4-part adventure over the weekend for his yearly marathon. He called the adventure The Terror from the Forgotten Time, and he made use of the terrific toolkit and game mechanics in Savage Worlds Pathfinder, including dramatic tasks, social conflict, mass battles, and then intersperse that with quick encounters as needed. And it was really neat how I love the variety myself of the interesting mechanics in Savage Pathfinder, and it really brought out, and the mechanics brought out a quality in each adventure that I played in that made it unique and engaging. And Kevin is great, or he did a great job of interspersing the different mechanics that are available in Savage Worlds, right? And I think the beauty of Savage Worlds too is that you get an unexpected results from both the die rolls and the action cards. I mean, everyone gets very excited when we get a Joker. Everyone gets very excited when we have exploding dice. There's an exciting and fresh and regular flow of bennies. And Kevin used the conviction mechanic as well. So it was very enjoyable. And I think that the game system really brought to life the story that Kevin wanted to tell. So I'm going to pause here, and then when I continue, I'll kind of give some details because, it's not a published adventure. Kevin did it all himself, so I can go into as much detail without the fear of spoilers at all, right? I played 3 games in Kevin Madison's Savage Pathfinder Terror from a Forgotten Time that he ran. I missed the first one, but I think that was the intro, and it set up who the adversary would be. In the second game that I played, we had an extended dramatic task where we had to recruit allies for a big battle that was coming that the other players in the previous adventure had foreseen. And that was really enjoyable. We split up into various groups, with some of us buddying up and others going solo. And we were trying to convince the leaders of a particular political group to send us aid. So myself and another player, we went to go visit the Black Horses tribe of the Kelid that we had encountered and owed us a favor. So we started with at least 1 point to get them to ally, and Kevin had it so that we needed 6 points through the various tasks and various meetings. I think we had 3 rounds to get a total of 6 points for the group to come all in. And so we used our various skills. Again, it was framed as a dramatic task. We used our various skills, and I was the support in this case, so I would put together an argument, propose my skill, and then that would in turn be given to the main player. I think it was a guy named Jeff who played Velka, who was another Kelid, but a Kelid bard, and then they would roll persuasion as the default, and then add anything that I had contributed to that. So we did actually really well. We were up, I think, 4 points by the time we had our couple rounds that we could do during the first day. And then what I thought was very cool is that Kevin then had a combat encounter in the midst of the dramatic task. And this is definitely something I want to model in my games, and I hope it totally works when I run my Savage Worlds games, because it does break what could be the monotony of a dramatic task. As opposed, it's basically a bunch of skill rolls, right? And I could see that happening somewhat in my Iron Kingdoms game when I did the bar fight, because some people sat it out and some people actually fought. And when I ran a dramatic task or skill challenge, as it's called in 5e, for them to navigate the warehouse of this goblin mechanic engineer guy who set up a bunch of traps in his lair. So maybe I could have had some robots come out and attack or something like that in the midst of it, maybe halfway through. That might have been a better way to run that and make it more exciting. Anyway, I kind of did that, I feel, in the Bell Tower, which I talked about in the Iron Kingdoms 5e game the last time, where the characters had to basically duck and dodge a swarm of adversaries to get to the end. But I really like what Kevin did. He had an assassin attack us, and the assassin was a wild card in parlance, in Savage World parlance. That is like someone who's a character like us, who can roll a wild dice along with their regular attack dice, and their dice can explode. They have more than 1 wound, so they're pretty tough. And that one assassin nearly took down Velka, but Kate eventually helped to cut him down. So we won. I got some good hits as usual. That happens for me, and eventually that the dice will roll your way. And also, especially if you have a meta currency like Benny's where you can make re-rolls, eventually you're going to get exploding dice. And since Kate, my character, has a really high fighting and gets buffed. I got buffed by Velka. I was rolling like a D10, and then my strength is already a D10. So if I roll a 10 and then I roll another 10, that's a hell of a lot of damage. I think that's what happened. I feel bad for some of those characters who were soloing this, because when the assassin attacked, they were in a world of hurt. And actually, two players had their characters die, or technically die. But then there's a neat roll, I think, in Savage Worlds 2, where you get one last roll of the dice, and if you succeed, you don't die, but have a permanent injury. If you succeed with a raise, you might have scars and mental trauma, but you survive intact. And both of these players, when they rolled for their character, that last death roll, as it were, they got a raise. So that means they survived intact and they lived to fight another day, which I thought was a pretty cool mechanic. So in total, for this first session of the extended dramatic task to gain allies for the battle, we were at a -8, but by the end of the dramatic task, we were only at a -1 compared to the big bad who was leading an army towards our home town of Torch. According to that big bad's army, we were only like 1 down as opposed to 8. And what that would translate to in the battle to come is that we were just down, by being down 1 force, they would have a +1 on their battle roll to start with, but it was better than a +8 to start with. So we did pretty well. We got, one player got the Crusaders to join. We had the Black Horses to join. Another group had River Pirates join us. And then the last player, what he was doing for his dramatic task was to help create some sort of anti-psychic warfare dish in the town of Torch. So he succeeded despite being attacked by an assassin. He actually put the assassin to sleep, which is pretty neat. That is another thing I think is pretty cool about Savage World that I've really enjoyed, is the magic system. It's pretty versatile. It's not Vancian that you have a certain number of spell slots that you can cast. You have points and you can use them as you see fit. What I think is really neat is, although you have an initial trapping that you choose, you can modify the trapping by expending more power points. You can modify the range by expending power points. You can modify the area of effect, how many people you affect, by spending extra power points. And you can also spend a penny to add 5 more power points if you're running low when you're doing all these special things with your spells. So that's pretty neat. It makes for a shorter spell book content in a particular rule set, which, as we have seen, actually, I think that's probably what makes the bulk of many a rules book is the spell list, right? You can imagine DCC with all the different things that can happen with their damn spells. That's huge. But even, so the player's handbook, even the AD&D player's handbook, that's a lot of room taken up by spells. So this way, with a more versatile mechanic for how spells work, I think it cuts that down, and it makes it honestly fun to play a spellcaster. And the thing is too, so like I have arcane background, whatever magic that's in the world, but you could do it for arcane background psionics, arcane background weird science. So you could figure out all sorts of things, and you just really, the spells will be the same, but the trappings will be all different. Again, speaks to the versatility of the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, or Suede. I sing this song for the common man, for the people in despair. I bring my song into the world, and I sing it everywhere. The simple truth lies waiting here for everyone to share. So the second session that I played in was The Big Battle. And I think Savage World did a really great job of modeling this, and Kevin added some neat elements that he thought up of to make it even more exciting. So you can imagine a battle as an extended or a type of dramatic task where you have, each army has force points, and there is a attrition of the force points through the course of the battle, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people are dead and dying. It means the cohesion of the fighting forces it becomes lost. So during the battle round, all of us as characters could, as player characters, could do something dramatic and contribute to the overall battle roll that was done at the end of the round. And then we would have to roll either a vigor or agility, I can't remember which one, to not take damage or not be affected by the running and gunning of the battle, since each sort of battle round was, Kevin said, was like 2 hours. So it was really cool. It captured the ebb and flow. Everyone, I think, was really into the narrative, could describe what they did and then contribute to the battle or not. There were some initial, so the way the battle went is initially we got smoked. Our initial lines were overrun. My character, I know, having formed a bond with Jeff's character Velka, went to try to rescue them in the midst of the battle, try to counterattack. That didn't really work. We were fighting sort of a losing battle, backing up through the streets and trying to cover a retreat and not have it become a rout. We were making our morale, which was good because we didn't end up routing. And eventually, though, I don't know, I think that our roles changed. We were able to hold the line, get a good series of rolls, finally tie the other army in the battle roll and stop things from bleeding severely. And then finally, at the end of the day, with some drama, we counterattacked their flank and drove them to a stalemate and stabilized the lines. And that was done kind of, a couple of players had their characters sneak around behind and made the rolls to do that. Another character had them describe that they found like these old, the inn that we had usually was our hangout when the town was normal and not in a battlefield, and got all the spirits out, had people make Molotov cocktails as quickly as they could, and then sneak around and attack the flanks of the army. Clearly, they didn't like spirits or stop for a drink while they were rushing through, but it was an army of, I guess I should have described at the beginning, it was an army of mutants and cyborgs that were led by these psychic tree monsters. And I will also add that Kevin Madison on the Dungeon Musing podcast is describing the whole event in his latest podcast, Musings Marathon. And you could also watch the actual play on his YouTube channel as well. But it's a different audience, but I'm just, sending you that direction. So there you go. And so that was the day one of the battle, and it was broken up. So we held the line. It was 8 hours. The night had fallen. I guess the bad guy army had retreated to their lines, and then we got word that they were trying to do a flanking maneuver and bringing some Numerian tech to bear, like big guns, to bear on our, to try to destroy us from behind or the rear or the side. So again, Kevin interspersed an extended dramatic task of the battle with some fighting. So we, as the heroes of the tale, volunteered to go meet this group and skirmish with them. So it was a skirmish of the garbage heap. And we did very well. And the reward for doing very well was that we took some of their fighting force away from them. We destroyed 3 squads of mutants, about 3 or 4 cyborgs with big guns, and 2 big giants. So that really depleted their fighting force, which was great. And many characters participated. Kate Firemain, my character, mowed through, I think, in one round, 4 mutants, and we held the line. And I think one character said that was a turning point, although their character did take out 4 of their own with a sleep spell. So, the standout was our friend Dave, who was playing Mare, an android gunslinger, and their character one-shot 3 of the cyborg gunners, including one pass when they absorbed like the big gun of the cyborg, getting rid of like 4 wounds. The dice were exploding for David like crazy. And then another neat action is we were trying to fight one of the giants, but then one of the players, Mo, he has a rat folk monk, and he threw his little Krull star glaive thing, and it hit the creature in the neck and killed it. He rolled like 30-something plus points of damage. It was stupid how much damage he did with that little Krull glaive. And then Dave's character, Maury, again, took out the giant. We had injured it somewhat, but then he finished it off with a shot from his ion rifle. So we did really well, recovered that tech, hurt, basically our night action hurt the fighting force, and then we had the battle start the next day. And the first round, we held the line, we tied the group, and then our hearts sunk when Kevin pulled the Joker from the deck for his action card for the final round. But we rallied, and we got a lot of successes despite Kevin's army going first. We got a lot of successes to bolster our battle roll. And then we had the priest of Bry make the roll at the end. And guess what? It's Savage World, Savage Sunday. So at some point we'd get an exploding dice on the battle. And yes, we did. We got an exploding dice. We beat their army with the raise, which was enough to rout them. So the army won, the battle won, Torch saved. It's pretty exciting, and all our characters were beat up. My character had numerous wounds and was fatigued, and wasn't the only one. So, leaning on her bloodied sword, just sighed and sat in the ruins and rubble of Torch, knowing that we would have to rebuild. Don't get discouraged. Don't be afraid. We can make it through another day. Make it worth the price we pay. The final session of Terror from the Forgotten Time, now that we had defeated the army of mutants and cyborgs and giants and psychic trees, was to track the leader or the cause of all this calamity to the source. And Kevin, Dungeon Musings, had one of the players have a dream, and his goddess helped to lead us to the lair of the bad guy. And we did a sort of truncated travel task. My character suffered pretty bad and was fatigued by that time, so we had to spend a day resting, and that nearly cost us because the big bad guy sent a giant robot to attack us and terrorize us, and it nearly wiped us out. But I had taken multiple wounds, another character had taken multiple wounds, and fortunately we had a cleric with us, so the healer kept us alive long enough to finally find places to strike and end this creature. I was kind of full on smite and swinging like crazy with a flaming sword, and we finally were able to, with a combination of myself and another barbarian rager character played by George Straighton, we're able to take this thing down. Again, the rat folk monk Clockwork threw a Krull glaive at a key moment that blew some certain key systems offline and destroyed the robot in a big fiery crash. It was really neat. It was a fun battle. Again, good to break the monotony of a dramatic traveling task. Although, honestly, with Savage Worlds, because we can add to the narration, they're not boring at all. And I think Kevin does a good job of keeping the action flowing maybe he has a good vibe of when, this might not work, so let's add some combat, or let's stop the task, we've done enough, type of thing. And then we crawled into the sinkhole and the cave and found this forest of sleeping psychic trees. And this is something that I thought was very brilliant and incredibly fun and dramatic, intense, is Kevin split the party. One group was doing some sort of like a psychic task, and we were doing like a physical task in the cave. And we were both doing a type of dramatic task that had a timer. And some of us were looking for the source. We know what the source was. The source told us to kill it before even worse things could happen. This giant robot monolith, part god, part robot AI, would come into our verse and destroy everything in its path. And two characters were in the psychic in the other place, trying to help the mental avatar of this person, a warden of some sort, to stay alive, while we found the source of this warden, who was the link between our world and the world where this giant god was trying to come from. So we did it. We accomplished it. I think it was cool that my character, and I talked about this in the earlier section. My character can cast spells, so I cast a burst spell, like a fan of arcane energy, and I was able to increase the damage and change the trapping from fire to electricity, which Kevin had hinted might be a key thing because of all the technology around it. Basically would short circuit the technology, I assumed. And then I was able to kill the physical form of the Watcher or the Warden that the other characters were trying to help the mental avatar stay alive, and they helped it to stay alive in time. And we did it, and then we ran out of there because everything was collapsing, or about to go up in a big fiery inferno of nuclear kaboom. So we made it out of there. We helped each other. My character, still being fatigued, needed a little help from the others, but we got out. We were alive, and then on to rebuilding of Torch. Each of us had a little what we were doing next, and then Kevin switched to like a scene where we were back in the partially rebuilt inn, and we all gave a good exit monologue for what our characters were doing and how we were reacting. And the terror, this god thing from another dimension, was still alive, but at least it had been stopped for now. I remember when I was a lad, times were hard and things were bad, but there's a silver lining behind every cloud. Just 4 people, and that's all we were, trying to make a living out of Blackland dirt, but we'd get together in a family circle singing loud. Daddy sang bass, Mama sang tenor, me and little brother would join right in. So the last session of Savage Weekend that I played, I actually ran a game of Deadlands using the Suede edition of the rules. This is an ongoing game. It's a continuation of Showdown at Sundown, which is a published adventure that is in the box set edition of the Deadlands rule set that has just come out. So I will try not to spoil it for people. I'll just give my impressions of the game and what we played. This is a game where my wife plays and my 2 friends, David and Melissa, who have been longtime friends, but only have been gaming for since we started this campaign, really. David plays a territorial ranger. He actually took an edge to become a sergeant in the Rangers. And my friend Melissa is playing a Hexslinger, which is a huckster who uses a gun, sort of following the tradition of Doc Holliday, and can etch runes on the gun and cast spells from the gun without incurring a multi-action penalty. So I think she took some skills to increase or something like that, because she had taken agility to increase last time. And then my wife is playing an agent, who is an interesting character, and I would like her to communicate her inspiration for the character, which would be pretty cool. But I'm trying to pin her down to interview her. She's pretty busy with her foundation and government contracts that she manages and operates. So, and she took, again, I think she took skills to improve, or maybe actually she took strength to improve, because she, in the last segment of the adventure, she had been in a fighting or brawling contest, and she kept winning, but she realized that, if she wanted to actually if she had actually wanted to do damage, it wouldn't be that great. So she upped her strength, so then she can then subsequently do other things. So she's also planning, now that as they captured a stagecoach, she wants to call in a favor from the agency to kind of keep that stagecoach and have it as a mobile transport platform. So instead of a train car like James West had in Wild Wild West, she and her posse would have a stagecoach. So I started out this time, they wanted to go back to the stage. They found out about the town that they were in and all the weirdness, or hints of the weirdness and where it came from. They had some ideas, but they couldn't quite pin it down, although they could pin down who was causing the strangeness. So they went back to their coach, but I decided to throw in some little bit of combat. And like my friend Melissa said, you're throwing monsters at us from the beginning, because the last time we put monsters in at the end. But it was fine. So basically they had to fight some of the Walking Dead, so the bodies that they had left, the people they had taken down the day before, had now become Walking Dead. I gave them a hint that there are some spirits in the air and voices that might be manipulating these corpses. And they dispatched them pretty well. And I think what was good is that they dispatched them before the Walking Dead disrupted the horses enough for them to break, and also ate the two prisoners they had who had been laid out in the coach. So that was good. So now they which was kind of neat, what they did is then do some networking after that, and have convinced these two former Cantrell gang men, I named them Bucky and Lucky, to join their group and act as sort of extras to help drive and manage the horses and the coach. So they gave them jobs, right? So then the next thing that we did is then they had been invited to the mayor of the town, a guy named Silas Wanamaker, to his place, and then they played cards, and they learned some things about this guy while two of the characters were playing cards, or had actually my wife's character Sam had Bucky play cards for her. Then the other character, the big territorial ranger, although very light on his feet and very agile, imagine Jack Black from every single movie ever, kind of a big man but pretty dexterous and sneaky. He was able to move around the house, and he found out some other things, which is kind of cool. So he found some clues. He almost got into trouble on the way down, but a couple of good dice explosions, he was able to convince one of the deputies that, hey, he was looking for the head. So it was a good session all around. They found out some information. We stopped there because I didn't want to get into the next phase of the game, which would be the next day, and the showdown at sundown, which would be a dueling contest. And the players are thinking of what advances they can give to the characters, and I gave them some hints so we can take care of that hopefully beforehand. But I mean, I think that as I learn the game better and better, they can kind of figure out what helps their character more and more. So it was a good session. It was fun to play again. It's always great to get new people in to our hobby that we love so much, so they can then spread the good word, right? So thank you, David and Melissa, for playing, and thanks to Amy definitely, I would say she hams it up. She loves to get into the role playing, but she hams it up to really encourage our two friends to get into it, and I think they're getting there. So it's pretty neat. Anyway, that is it for Savage Worlds Deadlands. We're playing Sundown at Showdown, and we will probably get to the conclusion next time. So we'll see where it goes from there. If we continue with Deadlands, or they had hinted that they might want to play East Texas University, which is another Pinnacle project where you play college students in East Texas, which I think my friends would love because they and their children went to A&M. So there you go. So Jason did encourage me, and I feel better this time around on the podcast. So there are 4 song lyrics that you can guess upon and get yourself a Benny for the drawing I'm going to do at some point. And I'm actually serious about the drawing. And I'm calling them Bennies because, hey, this is the Savage Worlds weekend edition of the GMologist Presents. So 4 songs here. There may be a few others here and there. I think Jason is the only one who's guessed, and I don't know, he has like half a Benny because he only guessed the artist. He did not guess the song. So artist and song for the various lyrics that I've tried to sing. Sometimes it's a better singing than others. I apologize for you musicians out there. And anyway, take care and happy gaming. I think that will be all for this episode. It's heavy on the recaps. We got some other responses to call-ins. I'm glad I got that character creation thing, so there's some RPG content that's not a recap. Hey, maybe I'm diversifying, which is always important. I am planning, I didn't do many zines for the zine quest. I did one, though, that I thought was really cool and cute. I like animals. I have many pets, cats and dogs, and I did participate or sign up for The Streets, a role-playing game by Andrew Vidal and Eliza Skinner, and I think I probably won't put on the show notes this time, but next time I think I'll review it. That may be kind of cool to do, something different. And this week, I've already played or run one game, which is our Mutant Chronicles game. I think I'll describe also character creation for Mutant Chronicles in the next time. That was a game that Jason Connerly suggested, and we played one session of it, and I thought it was pretty fun. It went pretty well. There are some nuances that we have to learn a little better in the 2D20 Modiphius system. It seems every incarnation of that system is different from Mutant Chronicles, which I think was the first one, and then Conan and Infinity, Star Trek, John Carter of Mars, the new Dune setting. I think there's a few others that I might be missing, but one of the experts like Arlen Walker will probably come in and can list all of them. So it's a fun system to play once we get all the little minutia, if that makes sense. And some of the incarnations, the Octoon Cthulhu is also now 2D20, which I'm looking forward to. And I think I might have set up something on the Roll20 for that for one of these days. So anyway, so we played Mutant Chronicles, planning to play Iron Kingdoms 5e tonight. And definitely I will talk about our first session of the Warhammer Fantasy RPG, which is scheduled for Thursday. And I think Saturday might be an off day. I was planning to attend this class run by DM Dave for how to write adventures, but I think he's postponed that because I got a lot of deadlines and things I got to do for the last couple Kickstarters, which is cool. I definitely want to learn how to do this thing, participate. Who knows where that could lead. I think I have a lot of good ideas, but a lot of the times when I think of a good idea, then I'm like, this is derivative, it's been done before, or it's pastiche of something else. It's hard to come up with an original idea because I think, and this also goes for like science, I think so many people complain in my field, oh, we got scooped, oh, they stole our ideas, but that's not the case. We read the same things, we're trained the same way, we come up with hypotheses and ideas in a very similar manner. So, of course, and there's millions and millions of people thinking about these all the time, and everyone is intelligent. It's really, I've always believed, and I'm beginning to believe more and more because the data is out there too, that's really the environment you're put in onto how successful you're able to promote your ideas and how successful you are. Everyone is smart, really. So in their own way of and intelligence is measured in so many different ways nowadays. So there you go. I think Sunday it might be Call of Cthulhu or it might be Umerica. I don't know yet. So I will let you know when the time comes. So thank you again for listening. I am trying to reduce the number of ers and ums and interruptions as I record this and think about it. Thank you, Andy Goodman. But I know a lot of you guys like the conversational nature of many podcasts. So there you go. Have a great weekend and a great week of gaming. And I will talk to you soon.